Morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, as the case may be. My name is Barbara Czachorska-Jones, and I have the pleasure of welcoming everyone to our virtual learning hour on behalf of the International Cooperative Research Group, ICRG for short, which is a research arm of the Overseas Cooperative Development Council, OCDC. Today we have session number 17. It's my pleasure to say that because we've counted that we started about 3 years ago with 6 sessions per year. So we are now in year 3 of our series of virtual learning hours. And we are really, really pleased to see everyone coming in from different parts of the world, different time zones. Please write quickly in the chat box where you are coming from, where you are joining us from. It's a pleasure and welcome to this particular session and all the session ahead of us this year and next. Agenda for today is more or less the same as other sessions. We welcome everybody right now. Then we ask Dr. Judith Hermanson, the director of ICRG, to say a few words to generally and broadly set the stage for this particular session. Then we have presentations of our guests. And we end leaving time for questions, answers, reflections, and comments from everyone. We do ask you to either send those questions and reflections through the chat box or through Q&A box, or just simply raise your hand when the time comes. We do want to hear from you, and even if we might not have time to answer all the questions in the course of the session, we are going to send and share those answers of our panelists later on in the follow-up to the session. So one more time, welcome everyone. We are glad to see you. And Judith, would you please set the stage for today's session?
Thank you so much, Barbara. And my warmest greetings to all of you from far and near around the globe to this virtual learning hour this morning, or this morning for me. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area in the U.S. Thank you also, Barbara, for reminding us about the journey of the virtual learning hour. This is an exciting platform for us and our colleagues, people who, like our friends today, are working on the ground, doing the great work and sharing their learning and their work among this community. I think it really is a very exciting kind of way to work together in this virtual space. Certainly, I know we have learned a lot from everyone who has presented here, and we will so today. So it is a great pleasure also for me to add my words of welcome to the OCDC member Frontier and their partners, the team from Avani Earthcraft and Team Mount, to learn about their work in India and the exciting and important things that they are accomplishing. And for me, I'll just add quickly here, there's a personal dimension to my pleasure of having this team doing this work with us, talking with us today. It's particularly meaningful to me for as many years ago, I myself lived for 2 years in the lower Himalayas, and not too far actually from where some of this work is taking place. And reading about it and being here today brings back many, many happy memories of that time. Chief among them, the wonderful people and the amazing landscapes. So I really have a particular personal connection to this presentation today. I am, of course, also eager to learn about it, along with all of us, all of you here, about how the work is bringing economic and social benefits to this region in India where they are working. Their work is a shining example, from all I have learned so far, of locally led development, inclusion of women, and supporting the overall community through cooperatives. And this is really important, not just because it's a nice set of things to do, but because the ICRG's research has shown scientifically that, and actually that's true, that cooperative membership makes a measurable difference, financial and social difference, a measurable financial and social difference for their members. So if you belong to a cooperative, you tend to be more robust financially, and you tend to have greater social capital, greater income, greater ability and confidence to advance towards your own and the collective goals, and an extended network to support of charity. But even more than that, cooperatives are organically as connected to their communities, and they make also a measurable difference in those communities, economically and socially. So this is really exciting kind of work and very, very important. I look forward very much to learning more about the experiences and the accomplishments of our colleagues today, and the lasting difference that they and the cooperative members working together are making in the lives of so many. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. So let me introduce very briefly our team of presenters today. For Frontier Co-op, which is a member of OCDC, we have Alicia Simmons, Sustainability Manager. For Earthcraft, we have its founder, Mrs. Rashmi Bharti, and for the Young Mountain Tea, we have also its founder, Mr. Raj Vable. So this team has been working with me, with ICRG, over the last couple of months to prepare the presentation. And we started from the broad area of just fostering economic and social inclusion through cooperatives, and through discussions brought it down to the themes that this particular team is considering crucial in their work. So I want to invite Rashmi to please start the presentation and carry it on with your partners from both Frontier Co-op and from Young Mountain Tea.
Thank you very much, Barbara. First of all, I would like to thank Judith and Barbara for inviting us, and Alicia and Raj for including the Earthcraft work for this sharing today. Very happy to be here. So I will just give a short introduction. We'll be talking today about the Earthcraft Cooperative that has been working now for almost 20 years in the Indian Himalayas. We are in the Central Himalayan region, and it's primarily a women's cooperative with some men as members as well. And I would like to introduce some of my team. Next, please. Silande. Yeah, so this is our combined team of Avani and Earthcraft. There is myself and Rajneesh Jain, who's my husband, as well as the co-founder of Avani Society, which we set up in 1996. And we moved to a small village in the mountains from Delhi and started working with rural communities today with three primary areas of intervention. One is appropriate technology. The second is revival of craft, traditional craft. And third is farm-based activities. So it's conservation, biodiversity conservation, and economic empowerment. Rajendra Joshi and Rajneesh Pant are the two managers in the cooperative. They've been with us for about 25 years. and are really the pillars of this co-op. Kailash Upadhyay, late Lalita Rathore, and Deepa Bhauryal. They are all very strong and very old members of the cooperative. Lalita ji unfortunately passed away last year due to illness, but she was a very, very strong and valued member of our team. So we were sorry for that loss. But this is some of the team. We are about 25 strong people in between Avani and Earthcraft. Next, please. And Young Mountain Tea, we will be introducing a little later. And over to Alicia now to talk about Frontier Co-op and our partnership together.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rashmi. And thank you, Judith, for such a wonderful opening there. It was lovely to hear about your experience. I wasn't aware of that. So, and thanks again to the whole OCDC group for having us here. I'm just going to start out with just sort of a context setting a little bit for the project. Frontier Co-op has been working with the USAID Cooperative Development Program, or USAID CDP, since 2018, starting with a project in Sri Lanka. And the project is called SPICE, or Safe Processing in Cooperative Enterprise. And it's really intended to utilize the cooperative model to build resilience and increase livelihoods for farming communities along our supply chain. In 2021, we had an opportunity to expand that work to 2 more partners. One of them was Fedecovera in Guatemala, who many of you have heard from on this webinar series, actually. The other was an opportunity that we were aware of from our relationship with Young Mountain Tea founder Raj Vable for a project with a community that we sourced bulk tea from in rural northern India. Since that time, it's been a whirlwind of business building and relationship building and trust building activities, all coalescing into a new enterprise, a tea processing facility that's owned and run by a collective of local farmers. The goal, as with all of our SPICE projects, is to keep more of that value add within the farming families and giving them an equity stake in the industry that they play such a critical role in. Earthcraft, who Rashmi will tell you more about today, has been a longtime contact and resource for our partner Raj, and they're based on their extensive experience with not only the cooperative model, but specifically women's economic empowerment programs and education. They seemed a perfect fit for the outreach and training elements of our project. And they've certainly proven that that's the case over the last 3 years. The Earthcraft team has played such a crucial role in this work, and I'm so grateful that they've agreed to present their perspective today with this group. So without further ado, I'll turn it back over to Rashmi.
Thank you, Alicia. So I'll quickly begin with our work with Avani Society that started in 1996. And the primary goal was how to harness local resources to create livelihood opportunities where there were none. We moved to this small village very close to the Nepal border. We are in the border district that touches Nepal and Tibet. And we've been there for about 25 years, working in 106 villages and hamlets. And our work has been with, as I said earlier, traditional craft, appropriate technology, and farm-based activities. We started with setting up solar lights in villages where there was no electricity. And off of the solar program, we realized that as we were asking for payment from families, we didn't want to distribute it free. The very, very poor families were not able to participate in this program in their access to technology. So we felt obliged, and that increasing incomes then falls in our plate as well. We must work on income generation so poorest of the poor can access technology. And mind you, at that time, there was no electricity in the villages where we were working. We are, accessibility-wise, we are about 7 hours from the nearest train station. And villages that were technically electrified meant 3 families out of the 200 had electricity. So most of the people were living on kerosene lamps or burning the pine bark as pine bark for lighting in odd hours. So that's how we started. And this small activity that started as an income generation program for 20 families of traditional artisans. It was a community of the Shokas that was trading with Tibet. So we are very close to the Tibet border. And they were trading and parallelly doing their work with wool. And slowly it grew into a program that is today an artisan cooperative, artisan and farmer cooperative. And it has reached about 2,200 families in 64 villages pre-COVID. Today it is about 1,500 families. Next, please. So Avani means the earth in Sanskrit. What we felt very strongly going to the Himalayas, we cannot just be consumers of this beauty, we have to give back to this area where we are living. So all our activities are in her service, to her people, the resources, the forest, the land that surrounds us. And it's a very fragile ecosystem. We didn't want to bring in anything which we would be responsible for 100 years down the line. So everything needed to be in harmony with the place. It is a place which has majesty, beauty, and is slow. We keep talking of slow lifestyles. It is actually the case in the villages. And we didn't want to be responsible that in the name of livelihood, we disturb the space. So everything is at the same pace, even till today. We try to build partnerships that understand this crucial element of our work. Next, please. So now I'll go on and talk only about the Earthcraft Cooperative, even though we do multiple things. So it's a people's cooperative, and primarily it is artisans and farmers that are part of it. The membership is only 510 people, even though it has reached 2,200 families. Not all of them, even today, are willing to be the shareholders. So I'm talking of challenges and successes parallelly. We would like them to be, but even after 20, 25 years, it has not moved to the pace we wanted to. At one point, 98% membership was women. We are very happy to note that now it is 78%, which means the men are also working. In our area, it is primarily the women who run the mountains. They are the backbone. They do everything. The men, the ones who are not employed outside of the state and are at home, are not extremely occupied, let's put it like this. So we were happy to note that as farmers, they are part of the program. And as you can see, on the left is a traditional pit loom to produce blankets, carpets, tweeds, and so on. On the right is a drop spindle. Our work for this revival of drop spindle hand spinning was much appreciated because it's a very Gandhian model of village self-reliance. Next, please. Again, in the slide before, the couple you see, they are the first people who donated land for a community center in one of our villages. Both of them have passed away, but they were visionaries in their time to look for community good, and they donated private land to the organization, which is where we have constructed a huge center. So the whole precept of Earthcraft is that today it is manufacturing high quality textiles in natural dyes, also working with farmers to grow the dyes, and looking at the process of production as much as the product itself. Historically, it has created a very reliable source of livelihood and stable source of livelihood for village women and school dropout young girls. That was not our primary target in the beginning. We thought we will provide employment for the young boys, who were school dropouts and just hanging around. But we were a complete failure after 2-3 years. They were earning good money, but they were not, the wanderlust was too strong. So the mainstay of this whole enterprise is the women and girls of that area. It has impacted and benefited the women and improved quality of life through our work, through income generation primarily. So in our area, what happens is that the girls study till 5th grade. And if the middle school is far away, the path is usually through a forest. So parents don't send them to school. It's not because they don't want to. It's a safety issue sometimes. So they are sitting at home waiting for marriage. We took in this 15, 16, 17-year-olds as vocational trainees. They became full-time weavers, and their age of marriage went from 17, 18 years to between 24 to 27 years, with no legal recourse, with no discussion around it. It was just an organic social change that happened. And we feel this is stable change. It is there to stay. Again, we've looked at the fair wages and the inclusiveness of the model. I'll touch it a little more later on in the presentation. But this is the view from my office. This is the Panchachuli, the Himalayan range. On the other side is Tibet. And it is very, very beautiful. So all of you are invited to come and visit us someday. Next, please. As you can see, it's the Himalayan women, who are the shareholders and the actors in this whole program. And it's for these smiles that we serve, We are in service of this whole ecosystem. And it has taken us a long time, but there is the partnership, the participation of the women has increased manifold over the years. There has been there were two categories of women who are involved in the program. One are the skilled traditional artisans, and the others are women who were unskilled completely. Either they were breaking stones by the roadside to earn money, or they were working in a neighbor's field to cut grass and so on. So some of them were trained to become weavers, and they've been with us more than 20 years. In that course of time, they have married their children, educated them, all the health expenses, built their homes. All these are changes that have happened. The school dropout girls that we consider not so literate, 5th standard pass, they've brought technology to their homes from their income from weaving and spinning. They've bought solar lights. There was no lighting in their homes. It's mostly men, who bring technology in the houses. But here it was the women and the girls who were heading that change. Next, please. So to emphasize the cornerstones of our work, the inclusiveness is that we take the environment, the people, and the happiness, rather the economics of happiness, together in this whole cycle. It's not a program where we are providing livelihood and somebody is a wage earner. They are owners of this business, of this enterprise. Decisions are taken together. There is still a lot to learn because a lot of it is skill-based. For example, signing the balance sheet of this cooperative. The president of the cooperative, she's 8th standard pass. When she's signing a balance sheet that has 70,000 rupees or 1 crore money that she's signing, she has to learn a lot. It's a very steep learning curve. So that is the investment we have made in the local human resource. And we've really emphasized that the entire team is from areas and villages where we work. Some of the young people had never stepped out of their village. Today, they handle all the core functions in this enterprise and the Avani institution as well, whether it is finance, quality control, serving orders. We've become a resource organization for natural dyeing. So we have barefoot scientists who've never studied science in school. And it's women and boys, and it's chemistry. Not only are we deriving color from plants, we are growing them, extracting color, and making products that our companies make, We are making 100% non-toxic crayons with pure beeswax, with only plant-based colors. We are making wall paint, we are making wood stains. But all this is done by barefoot scientists, which they've learned on the job. And the third very important part is the respect for traditional knowledge. We have built on what had been lost. So our work has been about remembrance. Everything old is not junk, and everything new is not gospel. Somewhere we have to find a balance. And a lot of the tradition is very valuable because that is what we are enjoying today. And we really emphasize this a lot. The second is the women's empowerment, as I have already talked about. Women are the core of this enterprise. It is a lot of gender balance we have to deal with, not only at managerial level, in the villages also, to find that voice again, to create the space where the women are anyway strong. It's just a matter of articulation and finding the space in a work situation as well. So all these have been equations and dynamics that have been dealt with over time. And yeah, next, please. So just to say, we've generated just cash income alone about 6,75,000 USD. Now, in a village where people are agrarian, they have a house to live in, what is cash needed for? Because originally it was barter system. Cash was not the currency of exchange. So the families have had to learn how to earn cash, which means most men migrate out of the area to earn cash income. They send money orders home with which the family will buy rations for the household. Now, when we are generating cash income, we are looking at young girls who become financially independent at the age of 18. They pay for their college education themselves through their income that they have earned. Some of them actually have paid for their entire marriage expenses and contributed to their elder brother's marriage also. 2 girls, they helped in the construction of their parental home. I mean, all of 19 years old, you know. And I think about 30 of them have bought solar lights. And they paid EMIs through their income from weaving. So all this is change, which is very quiet, you know. There's a girl who's deaf and dumb. And she's in the village, which was 4 hours walk from the nearest road head. Our field supervisor trained her to become a silk weaver, having no skills to train such a person. And you know, I came to know after 1.5 years. And I asked him, I said, why didn't you tell us? This is so amazing. And he said, but I didn't see her as different. I don't think any degree can teach this kind of inclusiveness, this kind of acceptance of a person the way they are, and not to see them as challenged, but just different, you know. So these are lessons learned for us as well. And it's not only the learning of the community. I think I have learned 100 times more than what we've contributed in terms of life lessons, you know. Next, please. So on the left is Deepa Bhoryal. She joined us when she was 17, I think, as a weaver. Today, she's the president of the cooperative. She's gone to school only till 8th grade. She's handling Tally program. She can give you an entire sales analysis on Tally, manages the entire inventory of finished goods, and also handles the social aspect of the cooperative. She signs the balance sheet as well. We sent her to the Best Management Institute for a 1-year training program. And just to hold her own, so 2 managers and Deepa, they went to IIM Ahmedabad, Indian Institute of Management, and they were among the top 6 that were selected to present. So the understanding of the enterprise, it has nothing to do with education. It's to do with common sense and logic. And she was able to hold her own because she just didn't know the term for what she was doing on an everyday basis. So we just connected the two and said, you already know what you're doing. On the right is Nima. She's our principal dyer. She has been trained on the job, handles all dyeing activities, natural dyeing activities at Avani, and also the growing extraction of pigment. She's again a barefoot scientist, has not studied science in school. Next, please. On the right is Radha. I was just talking about her. She's from the Digoli village and cannot hear or speak, but she's our best skilled silk weaver. Her products have no mistake because her entire focus is on weaving. There's no distraction for her. And this center has been set up in this village, which is 4 hours away from the roadhead. It's our largest weaving center. And it is to facilitate accessibility for the local village participants. Next, please. These are the products that are made. We are looking at a whole farm to fabric cycle, starting with raw material of wool, silk, the entire spinning, weaving, natural dyeing, and tailoring. All of it has been brought to the villages. So it is a product of the Himalayas, of the mountains. And if you look at the quality, it's a very high quality product. All these are natural dyes and the materials are local wool. So we are supporting right up to the shepherd in the high altitude pastures. This is local wool from Uttarakhand state, from Garhwal region on the right. The capuchons are very warm, hand-spun Harsil wool, woven and tailored at Avani. Next, please. So again, we are looking at the production system as well as the product. It's a zero waste, low carbon footprint and non-toxic cycle. We harvest rainwater. 100% of the water used is from, we harvest about 800,000 liters of rainwater annually. This is used for all textile production and 100% is recycled every day. We reclaim about 80% of wastewater every day, which is used to grow vegetables and dye plants. It's a very closed loop, which means if we generate pollution, we are the ones impacted by it first. It's that close. Sometimes, we don't see the level of ocean pollution because we don't see how synthetic dyes and detergents are reaching the ocean from our little consumption pattern. So we are looking at the entire cycle. We use clean energy in the processes of production. We have solar water heating systems. We use solar energy as well. It is supplemented to some level by the commercial electricity for larger machines, but largely this is how we work. It's a circular, sustainable production system, and it's like the Schumacher College. We really believe that small is beautiful. It's a model that is replicable anywhere in the world, which takes into account all the three factors that impact our lives: people, planet, and prosperity. Next, please. So the challenges that we faced on the journey, one has been the social system, right? It's a patriarchal system. So here I will talk to it a little bit. The way we functioned around it is we made our approach very inclusive. We treated the village as a whole, not as gender-based, that we'll work only with women or only with men or with young girls or with only a certain caste or a community. We kept ourselves away from that because that becomes another aspect of divisiveness in the village. There are already enough political aspects, which are creating division in our villages, and many others. Caste is another one, economic, so many things. So we kept the village as a whole and started working with the men, and they invited us to work with the women of the village. That took away a big element of conflict for us, because then we could actually work with the women without any opposition from the men, because that becomes a very big issue in the villages. The other is we are in a very inaccessible area. Inaccessible not in terms of higher Himalayas, but inaccessible as in the train station is 7 hours drive from where we are. And this is not even the villages that are 1 hour drive and 4 hours walk from where I am to reach the main village. So in terms of daily life, it's a very, in some ways it's very self-sufficient, but wherever it requires outside interaction, it is challenging. It's a very infrastructure poor area, which meant that I could not hire a hall and start a weaving center. First, we had to find land, then find the money to build the building. And after 3 years is when we could install the first loom. That's how we had to start our work. So it develops patience, like it is in the mountains. From today to tomorrow, there's no translation of your idea, You have to wait until it comes to fruition. The other part is that we are looking at the customer profile. Who is it that wants to buy ecologically friendly, sustainable products, or companies that want to produce them? We find that the customer aspiration and the reality is very different. They want to buy, but they don't want to pay for it. They want to be seen as green, but the fact that this product is environmentally paying all its costs without causing pollution, in fact, it's carbon negative. It is increasing forest, reclaiming wastelands, and providing a very happy space for the community. It's priceless. But that understanding is where we still have a long way to go. So I think that's been our challenges on both ends of the spectrum. Yeah, and the next, please. Yeah, I think that's the end of my presentation. And I hope this is a sunset from Almora, which I took about 20 years ago. And you can see the mystery and magic of the mountains. And we hope our work carries that. And now over to Raj. We'll talk about our partnership with Young Mountain Tea and Frontier Co-op. He will explain it a little more. Over to
Thank you so much, Rashmi ji. It's always so inspiring to hear you speak. And thank you, OCDC, for the opportunity to be part of this conversation, and to everybody that's joining. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't think we say good night, but everything else in between. I'm really glad for the honor, truly, to present a case study of what Earthcraft's work looks like in the same state of Uttarakhand in northern India, but a different region and with a different type of product, with tea, which is the world's most consumed beverage after only water, but really using the same philosophy and approach to work with farmers and meeting them where we're at. And this is a picture of Alicia from Frontier meeting with some of the farmer partners that we took December of 2022. Next slide, please. So yeah, for a bit of context on how Earthcraft got involved with this partnership, my company, Young Mountain Tea, partnered with local tea farmers 4 hours roughly east of where Earthcraft is located, to launch a tea manufacturing company that we jointly own with the farmers. As we moved into the project, we learned that this idea of becoming a co-owner is one that was fairly far from the realities of the farmers when we began. So recognizing that I'm based in the US, and so our company, our organization's work is fairly limited to try to do the kind of really intense hand-holding and capacity building work that need to happen. So we invited Earthcraft to bring their model of inclusive empowerment to Kumaon tea farmers. And this project has a lot of partners in a lot of capacities, but we want to recognize and thank USAID's CDT program, Frontier Co-op, Acumen based in the US, and well, I guess we won't thank ourselves, but acknowledge that our company is also helping to contribute to the funds to support this project. So that's the context of this specific thing, but if we go to the next slide, just to set a little bit of a grander arc of time, this is a brief snapshot of the history of tea in this region. The British planted it in the 1830s and abandoned it. So in the 1990s, the local state government launched a program to create jobs that would reclaim wasteland through the tea bushes. And they were hoping that private players or companies would set up the factories to process the farmers' harvest into the teas that we all drink. In 2015, I was fresh out of graduate school and had been working with Earthcraft for, I think, about 5 years at that point on a variety of projects. And actually in Rashmi's kitchen, over a cup of tea, we decided to start Young Mountain Tea to begin to import teas from this region. So for a handful of years, that was the kind of working relationship. But then in 2022, the state government began to graduate farmers out of the program. And so they were transitioning from wage earners into becoming independent farmers. However, it was clear at that point that there wasn't the level of internal organization for the farmers to really be ready for this transition. And so that was the timing at which we partnered with Frontier and with Earthcraft to help set up this processing facility that we would co-own with the farmers to keep more of the value of the farmers' hard work within the communities. And how to figure out how to create this to be a locally led organization has been both the joy, but also the challenge of the first couple of years of getting this up and running. Could we go to the next one? And the way we're doing that is truly embracing the Earthcraft model. This is a picture of Raju from the Earthcraft team doing one of the trainings, which to Rashmi ji's point, you can see that a fundamental part is meeting the farmers where they're at. This is sitting in front of on the front steps of one of the farmers' homes in the first village of farmers to join our work. And there's a number of ways that we've attempted to embrace the Earthcraft model, but I wanted to highlight just 3 of them here. And the first one is probably the most important, which has been to establish trust, that we have good intentions and we're there to listen. So this is intended to be a 2-year training program that Earthcraft is going to help conduct. But it took the first 8 months of just consistent visits from the Earthcraft team before they felt there's a sufficient foundation of trust for the trainings to have any actual impact. And along that time, those 8 months, visiting once or twice every month, the approach was to listen first and then to develop the trainings based on the actual needs of the farmers, which is not perhaps revolutionary in concept, but very tricky in practice. And the team at Earthcraft was really gifted at coaxing out the needs of the farmers through many repeat visits. So then we had our curriculum, which I worked with Rashmi and Alicia many times to refine, and it continues to be refined because the second part of this whole approach is to adapt as we go. The trainings need to evolve based on where the farmers are and what they need. So initially, when we began working, because the farmers had previously been part of this government program, they had no formal way of tracking how much harvest was coming off of their farms. So they didn't know how much their tea was actually worth. So Earthcraft's initial trainings were on how to create records. And after that, it evolved into, okay, let's buy some scales so that you can measure the harvest coming off of your farm. After a visit to Earthcraft's campus, they were inspired by what they saw there to look at how to save money collectively. And so that was the next set of trainings. And now, presently, we're working on with the farmers to craft the vision and mission statement for the trust. And so each step along the way is very much being informed with what makes most sense for where the farmers are. And then the last one is really underlining the point that Rashmi had mentioned before, is to try to be as holistic as possible. And by that, we mean to think of this village as an entire ecosystem, rather than only focus on one particular demographic. And so in our work, even though 90% of the farmers involved are women, because the men are the key decision makers, it would, to Rashmi's earlier point, kind of emphasize differences within the community if we were only to prioritize one part. And that, I hope during the question and answer, somebody will ask Rashmi Ji about that, because I think this is one of the more intricate nuances that the Earthcraft team is phenomenal at doing. But that's the way we've embraced it. Thanks. Yep, this one. And so what we did in December of last year was work with a few researchers to conduct a baseline study to understand the realities of the farmers before this processing facility company comes up into place, which should be in May, just next month. And so to understand the impact of this work over time is the goal. And we were not surprised, but a little sobered to understand that really, because of the relationship of the farmers to the government program, there's a high degree of mistrust with any outside people coming in to make promises about what they're going to do. They had a lot of promises made to them from the government about how much they're going to earn that never materialized. And because our primary on-the-ground partner previously worked with the government, there's some skepticism about, okay, how is this going to evolve? So the first part was just to accept that this is a base condition for this work, that we have to repair broken trust and sort of move beyond that. Another thing was the unfamiliarity of the farmers with the general ideas of business concepts. This facility, we don't anticipate will be generating profits for 3 years. So for that window, and the profit distribution among the farmers is a very core part of the way the income will raise for them. But talking to somebody about profits in 3 years, when they're focused on making sure that they can meet their immediate needs, was a gap that we're still actively learning how to close. And then finally, there is a clear articulation from the farmers that they don't want to just be sort of typecast into being people seeking to earn more money. But for them, life is not just about cash, but it's about community and connection. So looking at ways that childcare, for example, could be provided while the farmers were working on the tea bushes, or health services that aren't currently available, or educational opportunities for kids, or all things that we recognize that in the future we'll have the great joy of working with the farmers to understand exactly how we can provide them not only livelihoods, but actually stronger and more rich lives. Not we provide, rather, but they position themselves to be able to accomplish. And so, yeah, we're about, at this point, 1.5 years into the trainings. And it's been really exciting to see that they're, even now in this stage, because of Earthcraft's very intimate approach, we've seen signs of success. Initially, the women were not able to attend the trainings without getting men's permission, but that changed over time as everybody got more comfortable and familiar with it. This is a picture from the first village of farmers to sign up to join the trust that owns the company. And so for them to take that step was a significant sign that the sort of mistrust and the unfamiliarity with the business concepts was beginning to shift. Additionally, we've been able to help introduce these farmers to work outside of their immediate village. As we mentioned, we organized a visit to Earthcraft's campus to understand more how co-ops can work. And then, as I also mentioned, finally, based on that visit, the tea farmers have requested help in setting up a savings group, a self-help group. And so all of this is in a fairly short window because, again, it took 8 months just for the farmers to get to the point, well, Earthcraft's team to get to the point where they felt that now we can put these trainings into place. The next slide, thank you. And so here's where we're at, setting up this first facility. But we're really excited about, over time, being able to bring this approach to other communities. There's 6,000 tea farmers in the state of Uttarakhand right now, and this government program is still continuing to expand. So there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands more joining the next several years. There's 4 other places already where future factories could exist, and the government is hoping that we will be able to partner with them to help support those farmers. And yeah, I guess in closing, it's really exciting to feel that through this collective of partnerships with Earthcraft, with Frontier, with USAID, with other people, we have the partners and the experience to build a model that we believe first can scale within the state and eventually, hopefully, beyond that into all mountain communities. So next slide, please. Yeah, with that, I'll just say thank you for the chance to share this case study. And thank you, Rashmi Ji, for all of your inspiration over many times. Oh, I forgot to mention that, yeah, I think of Rashmi as one of my closest mentors, not just in work, but beyond. And so with that, I'll pass it back to Rashmi to help close out the session.
Thank you. Thank you, Raj. It's always been an honor and a pleasure to work with you, and now with Frontier Co-op as well. So yeah, I think this looks like an amazing space to share what we do. And thank you for listening in. And we hope that this partnership grows further. And yeah, it's all credit to the mountain women, I think, that we are all talking and sitting, talking about things that matter in the Himalayas. And again, looking forward to replicating this or taking it to other areas so it can benefit rural communities. And you know what we are really looking for, I don't know how to put it, it's the spark in the eyes, no? If any initiative we bring continues to bring happiness and that joie de vivre for the people involved, then I think it's a success. The challenges are just by the way, and we continue to do what we do. So thank you once again to Barbara and to Judith as well.
Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you, Raj, Alicia. This has been a really great presentation, and I noted 4 P words from all of that you've been talking about, and these were people, planet, prosperity, and patience. I love those words, so hope that everybody else does too. I want to open the floor, and I see Francisco is the first one to raise his hand. Please, Francisco, come on in, make a comment, ask the questions. We are all here to ask those questions and share the comments. Francisco.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this great presentation and the opportunity to participate in this seminar, which is very helpful for us. So I have a question for the last panelist. He mentioned that they need to rebuild the trust with the community because of previous experiences from them, I don't know, through the government and I don't know, other programs and things like that. And here in Ecuador, we are starting a project on solid waste management, and we are facing the same problem. So I don't know if the last panelist can share with us more details on how they did that. Thank you very much, and that's my question.
Thank you. Great question.
Yeah, thank you, Francisco. I think the two things that we focused on in that initial window was first differentiating what we were doing from the government work. Because the farmers were, at that point, the government was the only actor doing anything within tea. And they were actually doing, in many ways, a very impressive and forward-thinking program in that these teas were certified organic from the beginning to international norms. So they had some of the pieces in place. So I do want to also give a lot of credit for their work. But we were doing something new and different. And because there was overlap in the form of this one partner on the ground who previously worked with the government and left the government to help launch this, it took quite a while just to differentiate that we're not talking about the government, we're not talking about the same thing. This is a new venture that you have ownership of. And so I think that was a big part, was taking the time to make sure it's clear how what we were doing was separate. And the other part was just being consistent and kind of persistent in coming back again and again and again. And especially, you know, for the Earthcraft team being 4 hours away, that was a role that they held with tremendous sort of responsibility, because this is the heartbeat of the whole project. So Rashmiji, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add, just generally on the way that when you've joined communities that there's a lack of trust, how you've gone about changing that.
Yeah, sure. See, what we found was that the quality of the relationship, one is a top-down approach where the government is the benefactor and the people are paid wages. Now, when you segue into an ownership model, the first reaction is, how will we function? Even if there have been trust issues before, because mostly these are communities who don't have access to so many resources. So it takes a while to build the trust, and the community is also testing you a lot. Whether you are serious, whether you are vested in the area. Like we were under the microscope for the first 3 years, every action is evaluated. But the day that the community sent their daughters for training to our campus, we were accepted. So that patience and that dialogue is necessary. And in some areas, it took us 3 years to even start the dialogue. But again, it's a friendship. It's not a beneficiary to, how to say, we are not bringing funding and then distributing in the village. That won't work, because the government is sort of working in a way of giving wages. So we found that having a strong dialogue and continuous presence in the community helped us to reach the level of trust that we required. I think that's all I feel. Because at the end, it's a friendship. It's a very human relationship. We have to get out of the NGO mode or a factory mode or whatever we want to be as an institution. When it's one-to-one, it changes. That's what I feel. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I fully agree with that statement. Presence in the community makes a huge, huge difference in the work. Very good. Thank you so much. Caroline, you are online, please.
Thank you. Caroline Bailey, ACDI Boca. Thank you all for sharing your experience. It's really interesting and yeah, very impactful, clearly. So thanks for that. My question is really around kind of the private sector engagement piece. And, I think maybe part of the answer to my question is that the private sector that's involved maybe is not kind of the typical, private sector actors that we tend to work with. But, you're talking about it taking 8 months to even kind of start training activities with the communities. And, I know in the beginning, you were sort of talking about not wanting to kind of disturb the pace of life that these mountain communities are used to. And, clearly, I think that kind of goes outside of what we're used to with expectations from private sector about how quickly things should move. And so just wondering kind of how you handle those relationships and help private sector to understand why those pieces are important and, from a quality perspective, why you need that time.
Rashmi, would you like to comment?
Okay. See, there is a lot of, again, on one hand, we are having a lot of dialogue with the community, but a similar dialogue is required with the private sector, because the whole model, I mean, it is a little bit of a generalized statement, but the profit-driven model is clearly not working, and which is why we are all looking to change. But that change begins with the pace, first of all. And the private sector or the private entity that would like to be part of that change has to first bring that change within their own structure and their way of working. Like for us, what we find, let's say we do make a product. It's a textile. Now, if we look at a partner who's a wholesaler and they want tens of thousands of products in 4 months, that's not our person, right? Because one, we cannot keep up with it. Second, it's not how we don't want to create a sweatshop in the name of livelihood. So it's a thoughtful intervention and dialogue that both have to enter into. The private sector has to agree to change, and wherever the work is, wherever the community that is contributing to that production or manufacturing, it has to be a decision that's made together. So it won't happen if the private sector feels that the same rules have to apply and still it has to be sustainable and circular. It won't work. It has not worked. So we found partners who agree with this reality of life. For example, a partner says, I want delivery in 3 months. We just can't do it. We have to work with partners who have a vision, who say, okay, I will give the order 1 year in advance, which means you are catering to the cycle of the village lifestyle. They are agrarian. When it is agriculture season, they are not going to work for weaving or spinning, which means I have to take the order when they are free. That is when the production for the next year will happen. But that requires a lot of explaining and a lot of dialogue with the customer, whether it is a private sector entity or it is a buying house. In both cases, it is the same. But if they are not willing to change, then nothing can be done. That's what my view is.
Thank you. That's another part of the real picture out there. I have another question I wanted to share, and please everyone to remind, we may not have time to share responses right now, but please send them in, write them in the chat box, and we will get to them. I have a question that is coming from Indonesia, from colleagues in Indonesia. How cooperatives finance themselves and how members participate. Could you, either Raj or yourself, Rashmi, briefly comment on this?
Raj, would you like to start? Then I'll continue.
I think on this one, because we're not to that stage yet, it might make more sense if you would like to speak to it.
Okay, so with Earthcraft, see, there are 2 structures in India. One is a cooperative structure, the other is a self-reliant cooperative. So we opted to go for that, which means we don't have a government official sitting on the board of the cooperative. It's entirely owned by artisans and farmers. And over the years, this cooperative is operationally self-sufficient for the last 14 years. It works on its sales, and they have employed 14 managers to do all the managerial activities. So they pay salaries to the managers through the sales. So all the money from sales comes to the cooperative. They give out the wages and the salaries and most other expenses. But anything to do with a very expensive professional hire or infrastructure building, we don't yet generate enough surplus to do that. So this is how it's financed. There is a small sharehold capital, which is there from the 510 members, but that's very small at the moment. All profits are recycled back to expand the business. We've only given out dividends, I think, once, because we don't generate too much surplus yet. I hope that answers your question.
Ahmed,
Mr. Junaid.
would you want to comment back?
Yeah, this is my experience in Indonesia. We are very difficult to get financed to cooperatives. Yeah. This is just I want to learn from you. Thank you.
It took us also some time to get here, Initially, we did have to subsidize the cooperative. But slowly, as the sales picked up, we are trying to make it, we have reached a stage where it's operationally self-sufficient.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you.
Thank you.
Listen, everyone, I'm looking at the clock, and unfortunately, it's 9:30 on my clock, which means we have to come to a conclusion of our virtual learning hour. I want to thank everyone for being with us. We will address the questions that you are pleased to submit even following the session. I include here in the last slide the contact information for our presenting groups and for the ICRG and Frontier Co-op, and invite you all to share your further thoughts, and of course to join us at our next session, which we will announce shortly, and hope to see everyone there. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon. Bye.